Oi rat bags, I'm back with another impressions of the mixers. I showed you guys the location and what to expect with the enemies. That was when the update first went live. But now I've spent a few days actually testing them out in live streams and stuff. I've got some thoughts and opinions that I'm going to give you towards the end of the video. And we're going to be just basically going through what I think you need. Now I am using a mix of mid to late game gear here. And the idea was that I wanted to show if we could do it with like the minimalist gear. But they are, in my opinion, meant to be done after you've completed the main 4 laboratories. This is meant to be end game activities if you're bored or you do want to pick up some more of the utility stuff but you haven't got enough science points. So I firmly do believe you are meant to have decent gear. The flip side is you could potentially be going around building loads of bases up and stuff like that to stop the creatures getting in here, but that takes a lot of resources as well. But I'll explain that in a bit more detail. So yeah, using a mixture of my cheats because I love my cheats, but obviously got God mode turned off for the majority of these just to show you how difficult it could be. And like I said, we try not to have too much OP weapons, but you'll see in the end that some of these you are going to need the best gear. More tips and more stuff going on. Let's go with the mixer first impressions. So the first mixer I did was exactly when it went live. I jumped on, excited, spawned some stuff in, and then basically gave myself some good gear just to test it out and see what it was like. So I'm not going to learn too much in terms of gear that you're going to need, and it's going to need more testing. But obviously with the ants attacking and then eventually a few exploding infected weevils, it's a challenge, but I think you could get by if you're pretty good at combat with just lots of spike sprigs all around. A good few layers of them, or possibly, yes, building a grass box around it should be enough. The next set of mixers we did try using less OP gear just to see what would happen. But yeah, this was the first footage I had. Now obviously you can't replay the mixers, that's a fun fact at the moment. I really hope they change this in the future, make them harder or some way to regenerate them. But really that's what the wafter is for, that's where you can regenerate more attacks. So then we obviously got the soldier ants as well. So any weapons of course that have spicy and usually some sort of stabbing, you want to avoid your obviously axes or slashing damage. But with the two-handed katana, obviously it's such an OP weapon, I don't really need to worry about that. The ants of course do have their weaknesses in their eyes, so go for the eyes. Obviously you do get attacked by mites as well, but they shouldn't be too much of a problem, especially as they can't really do too much damage to you as long as you're close enough. Obviously once they get close to the actual mixer, then yes. So yeah, I think you'd get away with just building a grass box around this, and relatively you shouldn't have any problem as long as you've got a fairly decent armor set, even maybe oak or ladybug, that would be a really nice one, then you should be good to go. Obviously weapons like stabbing tools, so spears, and of course the mosquito needle might be a good one. Now you can build or you can keep building more items around it, but only obviously when you're not in combat. So once you've cleared out the wave you do get a few seconds. It does get a bit hairy as you could see right here, but of course the biggest danger is the exploding, is the infected weevils. They should be your priority. And so having just a run of spike scripts you can see kept them mostly out, and I was just cleaning them up as they got stuck. Something I've noticed as well, that the waves generally always come from exactly the same sort of spawn point or direction. So you'll always get the same creatures first, same creatures second, same creatures third, until it goes to the end where I was kind of losing track. But since I've done all the other mixers, it is very much a case of a very set type of creature will spawn at one precise moment during the mixer's run. So this did seem a little bit easy comparatively, but remember I am wearing late game gear, so if you was doing this with the most basic stuff or maybe only sort of ladybird armour, it would be definitely a bit more tougher. Also FYI, you can't repair the mixer while this event is going on, so be lucky. And all in all you'll face at least maybe 9 soldier ants, around the same amount of normal ants and probably the same mites as well, and with maybe 3 or 4 exploding weevils. You obviously unlock the guard dog at the first attempt, and we're going to test out and see how many levels we increase, but there's a bit of an issue with that. And obviously you do get the 2000 science points, and it's the same amount of science points for every single one of the mixers. So what did I actually think about this particular one? I think as the first mixer you're most likely to come across, or it's designed to be, it's a fair one. It's showcasing that it's going to be hard if you still got mostly basic gear and you haven't been able to put any kind of adjustments or improvements on your weapons. And certainly with your armors, if you can't obviously get roly-poly, then reinforced other armor sets or the ladybug armor set I think would still be pretty good, and just making sure you're maximizing mutations. Obviously healing items are going to be decent as well, or important. So the next one was the one in the Hedge. Now I tried this because this was actually the last one I did without any base defences. And again, I've got fairly decent gear on here, but I did want to mix it up. So I've got a spider gear and I've upgraded that up to level 5 or 6. And we went with bulky just to give us more durability and resistance. The Cortana is max level upgrade as well, as obviously you can do this pretty easily with quartzite and not having to worry about going and get lots of the other jeweled ingots. Now I was doing okay. You're going to get waves of orb weavers and then the smaller orb weavers, the orb weaver juniors, as well as obviously plenty of larvae. I'm showing this second one, and don't worry, we failed this first attempt. I wanted to switch up and show you guys even more in a second. But yeah, this is kind of, I suppose, the second one you should be doing. Once you've done the grasslands, if you followed the order of the story, then the Hedge should be the next mix-up. But you can see there's a whole bunch of larvae. Like, they come in waves of 4. You usually get always 2 junior orb weavers as well, and then usually 2 of the larger ones. And the junior ones are pretty tough. And this time the waves don't necessarily stop. Just because you don't kill bugs doesn't mean they're not going to spawn another wave. If you don't kill any of them, they will just start spawning more and more. So you won't be able to just lure them away or block them off somehow and not have to worry about dealing with them. It is tough. You can see how much damage was done to the mixer in just a few moments of them attacking with absolutely no base defences around it. Again, since I'm using obviously spicy and I've got my blade, I've got Blade Master as well. This was a fail and it kind of was nearly defeating the point of trying to show you guys how to really do this, maybe. Like I said, I don't want to do a guide where I'm just always in the maximum gear, but then again, the mixers are meant to be done when you have got some decent gear, and it is part of the progression. So by this point, you should have maybe a good, decent armor set, and you've upgraded it quite a bit with quartzite, and the chances are that you will maybe not have the Cortana, but you certainly should have a decent weapon that's upgraded too. So as long as you've got a weapon that's upgraded with spicy, you should be able to achieve this. But again, if you're following the story and you maybe haven't got to the sandbox and stuff, then maybe unlocking the spicy ingots is still going to be a bit of a way away. So this is the point where you really will need to start thinking about more base defences, either reinforced grass planks or stemmed walls. You could go mushroom, obviously if you've got that kind of resource floating around, but do remember when the enemies destroy these base parts, they don't leave anything behind, so you're not going to be able to pick up anything, and using up your mushrooms for something like this may be a bit too much. I built a hexagon style shape and I did a lip so I could just get over and under, and it seemed to be doing the job. You don't want the actual base defences to be too close to the mixer because lots of the enemies do have kind of extra area effect damage that might be able to get through. Also, don't forget you do damage to the mixer if you hit it, so again you don't want to be too close and accidentally start damaging it yourself. So this fight does get super intense. I switched to a black ant sword because again I wanted to try and show you maybe a slightly lesser weapon to show that it's maybe more achievable, but we did upgrade it up to level I think 6 in spicy. So this definitely felt achievable with this. Nice quick agile armor to be running around constantly trying to get at them. Lots of the larvae would focus on destroying the base rather than you, and kind of that's what you want so you can get them. If they're all damaging you, it's a lot harder, it's much more difficult. I'm pretty sure in the end we only actually had like 5 orb weavers spawn and maybe about the same again in the juniors, but we had maybe 12 larvae spawn, so that's quite a lot to deal with. And obviously this time I made sure I didn't have God mode on just to show you guys the kind of damage that might be getting done to you. So yeah, I was pretty pleased. In terms of the base defences, you could get more involved. Like I said, you could put 2 layers of base defences around, and I think that would help out even more, especially if you haven't got a whole bunch of spicy weapons or really massively super upgraded armour. You do get quite a good lead time on the creatures coming in, so if you have got somehow an OP bow or crossbow with lots of feather arrows, that could be an opportunity as well. Just remember though that the orb weavers are resistant to stabbing damage, so I think that counts for arrows too. Again, I feel like this was a fair challenge. At this stage of the game, if you haven't got the best armour, putting up just loads of defences and being able to run around super quick is probably the order of the day, and taking out the larvae is probably the most important thing. The junior weavers do pack a punch, so yeah, that is going to be more of a challenge, but yeah, just stopping the larvae from getting through your defences is key. So next up was the haze one, and again I figured this is like third in progression. I don't really know why I was using a salty weapon. I think I just figured I needed something to defend against. Having the mutation that gives you extra defense spicy damage, I think it is, then that's going to give you extra protection against explosions. Apparently that's what Stream Chat told me, and so yeah, I figured this one would be alright. At first this one seemed quite easy, like I could see enemies from far off. Again, you get plenty of lead time on them coming in, so you could just put a whole big barriers and walls and it's almost nice and straight. Enemies will be coming from just one direction, so it's easy to kind of spot, or certainly easier than some of the others. But it quickly turns sour once the ladybugs start rolling in, and actually the smaller mites that fire their stuff, they can really do some massive damage too, surprisingly. So while my attention was on a ladybug, the actual mixer was getting destroyed by the smaller mites firing their stuff. And then it was too late, everything just got finished off in one go. And again, I was trying to be strict and not do too much heavy armour, so I was using the Black Ant armour. But I did move over to the roly-poly stuff, and we went ahead and upgraded it to at least level 6. And again, we kept it as bulky. Remember, you can obviously repair the mixers using just the repair tool, and so that's going to be decent. At last, we have an actual use for it other than just repairing bases. Although, of course, we're going to be repairing bases a lot more now in future. And yes, we went mint mace with this one as well, and again I upgraded this up to level 6, I do believe. And again, just to reiterate, make sure you've got spicy safety on. Barbarian also, and then if you've got more mutations unlocked, then it's going to be a lot easier to get some extra bonuses and buffs. So yeah, you want to kind of patrol the outside. The one bonus of wearing the roly-poly armor is that it's meant to focus a lot of the enemies on you. That's its actual perk. Now I think I made this one actually bulky though, so I didn't get the additional perk, which is meant to be giving you extra blocking strength. That's what you get if you keep it as sleek. As I figured, I wouldn't be really blocking, it was about being able to just have lots of life and lots of durability on armour. So yeah, taking out the smaller creatures becomes actually more of a priority. Yes, I know, they can all do damage, especially the ladybugs when they get up close and start exploding everywhere. I was using much more beefier kind of potions, so making sure they were going to heal me up a lot more, and obviously just the bog standard bandages, and that's going to be crucial by the time you get to this stage. If you haven't got some strong stuff to heal with, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to achieve this, especially when you get such a big rate of the creatures come in. The smaller, obviously exploding ant weevils were pretty easy to deal with, just one swipe with my big OP mace. Sorry, it's not a mace, it's a mint mallet. Mint mallet. And you can see me patrolling. So you could build a huge mushroom wall for sure. That's what I showed off last time when the stream went live, when the update first hit. Obviously there's not that many resources here, or actually in the hedge area for grass. So you will have to spend quite a bit of time transporting materials over, with the only benefit being that there might be some more actual weed stems around here. So yes, I had been trying to show that you can maybe do this without the best armor, which is roly-poly. But fact is, unless you're going to be putting up a huge amount of defenses in front of these mixers, then roly-poly armor is the way to go. So it becomes a choice. Are you going to grind and get your armor upgraded, or are you going to grind and just put some defenses up? I think everyone's going to agree that it's better to get armor upgrades so that you can carry on doing other stuff with them, because it's going to just take so long to go ahead and put these defenses up, then either dismantle them, only get certain resources back, or spending ages moving them. Of course we can now run while you move your pieces, so that makes it a bit easier, but yeah, it's still not ideal. So I would say focus on getting good, getting better armor, upgrading it, and getting the mint mallet for this one particularly, rather than worrying too much about building a whole bunch of defenses. If you're really not that close to getting the mint mallet, you haven't done the sandbox or the picnic table, etc., and if you've only just unlocked the Haze laboratory, then yes, you could spend a lot of time building the mushroom bricks. But as it stands, these mixers, I really do feel like they're meant to be done actually after you've completed the game, but still go ahead and do them in the order of the story. And when I say complete the game, I mean that you've done the 4 major laboratories, you've unlocked the major upgrading paths so that you can craft spicy, salty, and of course fresh. With only really the first one that you come across may be able to do with more of the basic armor sets. Until I get really good, which I'm going to be showing these individually and trying to show you guys how little you can use either resources or the littlest, lowest gear you can possibly try. So next up, we were using the antlion swords and black ant armor in the sandbox for this one. So you got to do this at night time. It's just going to be too complicated doing it during the day with the heat stroke hitting you. I actually found this one of the easiest once I worked it out. I did have to restart it a couple times simply because of my own mistakes. You kind of do need your perfect block to be on point, or certainly if you have got better armor that helps with blocking, that might be better. So roly-poly armor again. But I did want to try and show at least that we could do it with something a bit less OP. The antline's always exactly spawn in the same spot, so there's one directly behind the mixer, that's the first one, then the second one is towards the bridge, so you can kind of choreography, you get used to where they're going to go, and so you can go and do a lot of damage. Obviously if the antlines do jump out the ground, they are going to do a lot of damage, so make sure you've got some healing items on you like that if you haven't managed to defend yourself properly. But you do get a good amount of time in between the waves. It's not until much later that you get a bit more of a challenge where you might get maybe 3 of them at once. It actually gives you a lot more time. So you should have plenty of time if you are building base defenses and stuff to either repair stuff or simply just make sure you're healed up. Obviously because it's the PTB, they weren't really spawning correctly, sometimes they spawn just above, and you can see I'm still getting knocked down. But of course being stunned is a lot better than being taken completely unawares, as you don't lose as much damage. Of course the antline's weakness is slashing, so if you can't use a two-handed antline sword, then obviously the black ant sword would be viable, but making sure that you've got maybe salty on it. You definitely don't want to be using the Cortana in this instance unless it's massively OP and fully upgraded, as they are meant to be more resistant to obviously spicy. But then again, that slashing damage does negate a lot of the elemental resistances too. But you can see here a couple of them do spawn and they're pretty aggroed on you. They're not that concentrated on the mixer. The issue is when they do hit the mixer, they hit it with a lot of power. They only need maybe 5 hits, 6 hits, and the mixer is dead. So as long as you don't die, you should be able to do this without the mixer taking any damage. It was literally because I died and I had my little base set up next door that I could come quickly and finish the job just in time. Start this in the early evening, you shouldn't have any problems either about the sunrise coming. So yeah, you do want to time it, you don't want to be doing this just as the sun's about to come up. Landing the combos is super important, and obviously making sure you have the slashing damage mutation too. It's maybe not so important to have armor that allows you to move around or recover your stamina as quickly, but I do like the black ant armor. I think it's pretty decent for this occasion, and it is kind of in line with the location. You should be completing the black ant hill and then coming up to the sandbox before you've maybe done this, so you should really have black ant armor at this stage. And last but not least, it's the middle kind of flower bed next to the grill. Now, I actually done all of these in reverse order. I did this one first, then the actual sandbox, then the haze, then the hedge one. I'd already done the first grasslands one when we first streamed. So yes, I kind of feel like I was a bit out with some of the arms stuff, but this was the first attempt. I built a whole bunch of defenses. I kind of copied what the developers of Grounded had done, but adding a little bit more of a ramp, Fortnite-esque, so I could get up and maybe shoot, because I knew the mosquitoes would be coming. I think this is going to be one of the hardest ones. The addition of flying creatures makes it much more of a challenge compared to some of the others. Black ant soldiers are no joke, especially when there's like 2 or 3 of them and then you've got 3 or 4 mosquitoes attacking you. Now, they didn't go directly for the mixer, they were destroying different base parts first. And if I had absolutely any better shot and was using maybe more powerful arrows, then I'd be able to take these guys out no problem. But it's safe to say my combat skills definitely still need improving, as it wasn't long before I was actually getting swamped by them. I was trying to use a mix of different weapons that were good for both of them, but yeah, it definitely needed tweaking. I think this might be the one mixer that you might need to definitely build some defenses on, even if you've got maybe mid to late game gear. Again, we didn't upgrade the armor too mad, it was like level 6. And make sure you clear the area of wolf spiders before you do this one. The second attempt, I realised I wasn't going to be doing this with the antlion gear. It does give you more protection, but it just doesn't have enough decent perks for this particular kind of defence. And so I went with the mosquito needle as well, thinking that maybe I can regenerate my health. I hadn't given myself some proper consumables, we only had like basic ones. You're going to need beefy and more to really do this. So that was fail number 2. So this time we upgraded the actual armor up to level 6 again. We had the Cortana this time again, because you should have the Cortana by the time you're doing this one. And we upgraded that to level 6 as well. In fact, it may have been even level 8. And I just really wanted to get it done because I've been owned and it's taken me forever to set this up. Again, we built loads of defences. This is the first attempt, so I was being more cautious and putting up spike sprigs and stuff. And they definitely, obviously, keep some of the other creatures out, the black ants, but they don't last long. Black ants are so strong that it might not be worth it. You're better off just building 2 sets of walls, either mushroom walls or more reinforced grass. Or obviously, yes, being super good. I feel like because of the creatures, the way they flow, the flying ones that take up your time, you are going to need some walls for this one. It's simply just too much to do, taking them all on and then moving around trying to stop the flying ones from attacking. So this worked well, kind of like a shell on top of the mixer, and that seemed to do the job. So not even covering the mixer completely with walls all over, but just a few ramps seemed to do a good job. We had tried things like using bows and stuff as well in an earlier run, but that just wasn't doing it for me. And yeah, I finally got good a little bit at combat. In fact, the base held up so well that even when I got killed here, it was still fine. I managed to respawn and go and get back into it. Of course, I got my stuff on, so you'd have to grab your bag and spend more time doing it. But you can see the base is holding up. We have got like 4 or 5 mosquitoes, 3 or 4 of the ant soldiers attacking, and they haven't managed to get through yet. This could be where a turret could be in use. It might be the only time that you might need a turret seriously to take out the mosquitoes. I think it's like 2 or 3 pebbles to kill them. Even when I died the second time, the base was holding up and we was getting closer and closer to the end. So what have we learned really about the mixers? Well, like I said, the first grasslands one I think is achievable even if you haven't managed to complete most of the game. After that, it just depends on what kind of effort you want to put in. Do you want to spend loads of effort getting 2,000 science points, building huge bases around the mixers, or do you just want to wait until near the end of the game and then get the science points after so you can go and get some of the cosmetic items and some of the utility items? I think I've pretty much said what I think is the right option there. I think the grasslands doesn't need tweaking too much. It seemed like it was doing the job. I think the hedge one is balanced pretty well as well. The haze, I feel like, yes, it is balanced, but as soon as you get that mint mallet, then it becomes a lot easier. So they could probably do with actually increasing a little bit some more of the mites, or more adding exploding weevils or some of the exploding larvae. Because once you've got a mint mallet, that one becomes almost way too easy. The sandbox is definitely too easy. Even with mid to late game gear, it was easily doable. So I think they should have some waves of either black ants or something interesting, a bit different, maybe actual gnats bumping weapons out of your hands in between the levels of the actual ant lions. And this one, I think the level is just about right. I wouldn't make it any harder. I don't think it needs to be made any easier. It should be a challenge. And as said, you shouldn't really, in my opinion, be doing these until you've got kind of late game gear. Now, if that's wrong, if the devs have always envisioned that you do this as you progress and it be something that you take on, then clearly a lot of balancing needs to be done to make some of them a bit easier. But I would say that it's just right for people looking for end game activities. So as I said, I'm going to be spending a lot more time doing it legit and making sure I'm focused. I want to test stuff out and see if, I said, do it with a turret on each one of them or try some crazy ways to defeat it. I want to be the guy that defeats them with just a pebblet or some shizzle. Let me know your thoughts and opinions about them. Have you tried them out yourself? Do they look as hard as they seem? Or are you going to be just leaving these alone? As always, I'll be back with more grounded guides, gameplay and news. Until then, I'll see you later.